In today's episode, we talk about Jack's lessons from past relationships. We look at boundaries, including fear-based and love-based boundaries, and how to create boundaries that stick in lasting relationships. Welcome to Man Quest Define Meaning, where we help men navigate modern life, find their true purpose, and redefine manhood. I'm your host, James, and each week, inspiring guests share their journeys of overcoming fear, embracing vulnerability, and finding success. From experts to everyday heroes, get practical advice and powerful insights. Struggling with career, relationships, or personal growth? We've got you covered. Join us on Man Quest Define Meaning. Now, let's dive in. Can you tell us your story?
It's like a hard one where to be in. Okay, so as I mentioned, my dad was alcoholic. In fact, I've got a big history of substance abuse throughout the family that I was completely unaware until I went counselling for the first time, which was just after COVID, which I had like my biggest dip. That was one of my lowest points just after COVID, and pointed out that, in fact, essentially my entire family deals with their problems through substances, mostly alcohol. Mine was weed. There was alcohol, but I've had multiple family members die from the ramifications of being alcoholics. And so, yes, my dad, dealing with his own trauma, never had the opportunity to, was like super tyrannical and just a bit of a broken man growing up. And that led me into big people please. I was super sensitive, emotional growing up, as I later realised my father was as he was a child, but his dad fucked it all, messed him up. And anyway, that's how it bleeds down. And he really did try his best. Anyway, this isn't becoming about my dad's problem. It took me a long time to reconnect with my sensitivity after having it very much squashed in my formative years. And then it was around, maybe a year or two before COVID, I went on my first men's retreat, which blew my mind. I had never experienced anything like that before. Being like 30 guys, all walks of life, everything I can imagine, coming to deal with all walks of obstacle, whether that be relationships or self-exploration or drugs or whatever I can imagine. And then just this air of doing the work, like we're there to do the work, but zero expectation of how you show up. You could be 100% authentic and you'll be welcomed in. You want to do the workshop? Do the workshop. Don't want to do the workshop? Don't do the workshop. By turning up, we've all made our commitment here to try and do the work. But if it's really too intense for you, that's fine. And everyone did all the workshops. No one ever backed out of anything. And I got to the end of that week and we were in our closing circle and we're all making our commitments to what's the next step? What's our accountability step? And it was in that moment that I need to work with people. I have to work with people. This is just blown. I've never felt so fulfilled in my entire life. And I wasn't even facilitating, hosting, anything. I was just there as a member of the participants, but just having connected with the other brothers and just seeing the power it had on them and feeling the power it had on me. Wow, okay, this is definitely something that I'm going to pursue. Didn't know what it looked like then. And this many years later, maybe 6 years on, I really only feel like now that have started fulfilling that promise to myself then. But these things take time and it's been a wonderful journey. And I would say also, apart from the individual men's work, my partner Erica has just been pivotal in my ability to explore. One thing that has become very apparent to me over the last however many years as I've been training and helping people is I'm only able to help others as much as I'm able to help myself. And there's been such a real motivator, and it's so true if I'm in denial about X, Y, or Z, how on earth am I going to go help someone else who's in denial of X, Y, and Z? How on earth am I going to speak from a place of authenticity to help that person move through this particular obstacle? So yeah, and again, that bleeds back into the relationship part of it. Erica has been just, there aren't enough nice, powerful words to describe how lucky I feel in one sense. Almost, now maybe that's still a part of my worthiness that I need to work on. It's like, I almost feel like this is luck, like it's been given to me from the universe or whatever, but I put in plenty of effort to make this work and to work on myself. So it isn't all given. It's never all given. Nothing is given. But I would say those two things are like the main factors of or three things: my upbringing, finding men's work, and finding a relationship that's really motivating me to improve myself. Yeah, how I found myself here right now, talking to you. Yeah.
Here we are. So you mentioned a couple of things. So earlier on, you mentioned about commitment. I remember after my first major breakup, which led me onto the path. I believe the path, the journey, whatever you want to call it. The main thing that I did after that was to commit to never be in that same place of my lowest point ever again. And I feel commitment is such a strong word, because we have this idea of we have to commit to doing something. So we have to commit to a job, we have to commit to paying off our house, to commit to looking after kids, that kind of stuff. But there's something deeper with the word commitment. And I think with regards to commitment, there's a level of, you've said a few times, ownership. And I think you were mentioning about in order to progress, you've got to be at a place of taking ownership of yourself, which is such a key thing. And so what is your definition and take on ownership?
Okay. I'm going to steal. Have you heard of a guy called Jason Gaddis?
No.
He's a wonderful relationship coach and psychotherapist and mentor, and I actually did 2 years of training under him. And I now associate the word ownership with the word authorship. He's talking references, he talks about victimhood and authorship, but it's all in one. And I feel like we really have to trust that we are in control. We do have a choice going forward. And there are events which we are a victim of. So it's like someone cheats on us, someone hits us, those truly like bad things which we are victims of. It's hard to take ownership over those bad events where we are true victims. But the author side of that, the authorship of that is, okay, I find myself in this situation. What do I want to do next? And that, for me, like that one question is ownership. It is authorship. Here are all the things that I've experienced. Here are all the impacts I have. Here's what I'm carrying. The good and the bad. Don't know those words. The comfortable and the uncomfortable. What do I want to do next? And that's as simple as it is for me in ownership as a statement piece. What do I want to do next? Do I need to turn around and make amends for maybe some of the things in the past? Is that holding me back? Do I have these thoughts going, I really wish I hadn't done this, really wish I hadn't done that, or whatever? Is it something in the future? I never want to experience a relationship like that again. I never want to be abused like this again. I never want to be used like that again. I want to create this. So it's like this ownership is really realizing that we have the power to build our future. I always try and want to avoid being super cliche when I say that. It's like, oh, anything is possible. The world is yours. But it's like, on some level, yeah, actually, anything is possible. You don't want to have bad relationships anymore. You can make that happen. You want to be more financially comfortable, you can make that happen. You want to live in a different country, you can make that happen. You want to make amends, you can make that happen to a point. It depends what your idea of making amends is. If your idea of making amends is this person has to forgive me, then that's something you don't control. You don't control other people, but you can go and admit to the impact of your actions and then leave it in their hands. And if they want to forgive you, they can forgive you, or so on and so forth. So I think, yeah, as simple as it is, ownership is about choice and reintroducing choice. And it's the respond thing we were talking about earlier. Reaction, there's no ownership in reaction. You can own that you've had a reaction, but react is like victims react. Oh, this thing's happening to me, bam, I'm going to react this way. And authors respond, I'm perceiving this thing. How do I want to respond to this? And also both are, again, I want to say both are fine. We will all feel victims of things sometimes, even if at a later date when we really think about it. So actually, I did have a part to play in that. Here, this is a ridiculous example, but this is the one that Jason used to say. And I always used to love this because it's a completely out there example, but it really illustrates the point. Is, let's say your car gets stolen. How do you take ownership over your car being stolen? It's not your fault. Someone else has come into your life and done this really horrible thing. And I could have got a steering lock for the wheel. Actually, I got 2 cars, probably didn't actually need a second car. I probably didn't actually have to have it. Could I next time buy a car that has a better security system? Can I put a tracker in my next car so if it did get stolen, I would know where it is? Instead of just sitting there being like, I'm the victim of a crime, it's been like, okay, retrospectively could have made these decisions. And even if that wouldn't have helped in the future, I can make these decisions to make sure it never happens again. So there's the ownership piece. It's not, I hope no one ever steals my car again. Oh, I feel so bad because I didn't deserve this. It's what can I do in future? And it's like very hyperbolous, that example, but I love it because I do think it illustrates just choice, just reintroducing choice. I love that. And it's not always fun. Sometimes it really isn't fun. But it's so important.
Yeah, let's do another example. Let's use the example of my first relationship gone wrong. I could blame that person and just completely blamed her for everything. But if I was to take ownership, there was part of me that had patterns which led me to be what they call a Mr. Nice Guy. So the not accepting conflict, the idea of my own patterns from childhood. Perhaps I wasn't in a place ready for them yet. Well, I wasn't ready for them. I could have taken ownership with regards to how I treated it at times. I could take ownership of, just the way I act and not accepting. Sometimes I wouldn't take responsibility. Then they're all key things. And if you look, you're mentioning earlier about people who are in relationships, they go from one bad relationship to another bad relationship to another. And they ask the question, why am I always attracting this kind of person, whether it's male or female? And it's because I believe they've got subconscious patterns. And as you said, if they feel safe in them relationships, they're not being, like you said, may not be good for them, but they feel safe. And so it's about identifying those patterns and changing them patterns. Because I think I think to a certain degree, you can live a fairy tale life if you want, but you've got to do the work. And that's the key thing, work. Not as in it's always like business work or work you hate. It's that growth.
Yeah, you've got to value it. And honestly, like that exact thought actually used to really cut me off. It's just always going to be, because this is always what it's going to be now, just constant self-reflection, finding out these things about myself that I really don't like. And I do think it plateaus off after a while. There's always going to be challenges, but I do feel like after you go with that initial hump, finding the shame, loving you, I do think things become easier. And I say it doesn't feel like, it used to feel like a chore to me. It really did. And that kept me stationary for a long time because it felt like such a chore. And I would have so much shame come up through the work. But it is so, sitting in where I am now, it's so worth it. And I'm not perfect. Don't want to be. Not cured because I'm not ill. I'm not fixed because I'm not broken. All of those things. And those are like the limiting beliefs I had before. I need to be fixed. I need to be cured. I need to be this. I need to be that. This and that. So I'm completely missing the point of doing the work in the first place. But funny as well, I love at the end of your last relationship, and actually I had the same thing. And I actually feel like ends of relationships are places where people really struggle to take ownership over their part. Really. And I think that's why so many men as well, are completely blindsided sometimes by a relationship ending. They're just like, this was me. My relationship before Erica. At some point, we were together about 6 years. And at some point, she made me promise her that we would be together forever. I promised we would be together forever. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. We're going to be together forever. And when we broke up, I was furious about that. I remembered that oath. I remember that vow. I'd never said that to anyone in my entire life. And I felt so betrayed. And I blamed her. It was her fault. She promised. She made me promise. Why are we not doing this? And then as I started reflecting, and this wasn't immediately, it took me a long time, probably a big pivotal point for me actually in my growth. I actually realized that from the moment I made that promise that I'll love you forever, I stopped trying. I stopped putting the effort in. I stopped showing up the same way I had been, because in my mind, the end had already been written, and it didn't matter what I did at that point. Didn't matter how unloved she felt, how unheard she felt, how unappreciated or undervalued. I could be as emotionally abusive, and I don't mean I was shouting her or anything like that. I was just checked out. That was I just wasn't. It's like she was in a relationship with no one. And those are the lessons that I really carry now. Every day is a new day with Erica, and every day could be a breakup, or it could be another fantastic day in our relationship, but there's none of this. I promise you today that I'm going to be this way forever. I promise you today that I can show up how I am in this moment forever. They're just that unrealistic and not my version of expressions of love, which to me is a daily choice. So yeah, you can learn, if you're willing to take ownership, you can learn so much. We can learn so much about ourselves at the end of, especially the end of romantic relationships. But I think a big pitfall or a big trap is people they turn to blame. And it pains me a bit actually when I see people really forget, especially after long lasting relationships, really forget the beauty of it, why they were together, and just turn into, they're a jerk, or they're a waste of space, or whatever platitude afterwards, which is just meant to keep it at arm's length. Yeah, it's a shame. But we're never taught. We're not. Where are we supposed to get the lesson that says, we do have a thing that says, learn from your mistakes, and nothing worth having was easy, and we have all these cliched sentences, but I was never. I think people don't get that, sitting down at some point in their life and being like, there's something to learn from all of this. And it's your responsibility to try and learn from your experiences. Yeah. I don't know. Need to put up big on billboards somewhere, plaster it everywhere. Public service.
You mentioned stop trying. That's a big one. I think you know what? I'm going to take ownership right at this moment, and I'm going to say that perhaps the first 2-3 months of the relationship, you tried to keep doing stuff, but then eventually I stopped trying. But then stop trying for me was I reverted back to my old patterns. I reverted back to going the easy route. And I think the key thing, and this is where the work. This is where the work is. the part of us which keeps trying, the part of us that steps in and, okay, perhaps takes a step back of an argument, sees their own patterns, sees their shadows, not in just themselves, in their partner, in their family, in the people around them. It could be the idea that they might read things like authentic relating or go and do men's work. That's where the trying is. That's where the growing is. And that's what I fully believe we need to put out into the world, is that idea of doing, I hate the word, you doing the work, because it's the idea of growing. That's where the growing happens. So let's just quickly go on to, if that's okay, we'll go on to boundaries.
Yeah, let's do it. I just want to highlight, you just said one of the most amazing things I think which I've just written down and I'm going to say to people. You said the work. It's the part of you that keeps trying. I love that so much because it's like, for so long, I asked myself, what is the work? What is the work? And like I said, I went through a long period of, the work is fixing myself. The work is not being broken anymore. The work is this, the work is that. And actually, I think that is one of the most perfect ways of expressing the work. It's just the part of you that keeps trying.
Yeah.
And that's enough. A lot of people don't think that's enough. And it is. That's so much just to begin with. I love that. Thank you for.
It's a pleasure.
Put that one in my pocket.
I think yeah, so boundaries.
Yeah.
What a topic. But yeah, it's so confusing because I believe as human beings, we don't even know what boundaries are. We know, okay, we know what a boundary is. A boundary is like a hedge around a field, or you've got a boundary around your house, as an example. But what is a human boundary?
It's difficult, isn't it? I think I have a very bad habit of going first to what things, where people are like, what is this? I'm like, I'll tell you what it's not, which doesn't really answer the question. The one thing I always start with, and again, this in terms of relationships, but I suppose works, everything, is like a boundary is something that not something that you do. And I think that's a super important definition for me. A boundary, hey James, you'll never raise your voice at me. That's not a boundary. I can't tell you that. The boundary is, hey James, the next time you raise your voice at me, I'm going to pause the conversation and I'm going to take 10 minutes, take a breath, and then come back to the conversation. And I feel like the difficult thing about a boundary is to hold what is that solid line. So that solid line, the example I just gave is, I'm going to walk away. You shout at me, I'm going to take 10 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and try again. It's not, you're not going to shout at me. And I think that that's very hard to come to, because it's also hard to then go too far with a boundary. Let's say, because where in that is my care for you, James? Let's say we're in a relationship. Ideally, I want you to have the freedom to be able to raise your voice. I want you, it may not be conducive to us collaborating, but I think you are owed the freedom to be able to be triggered. And if that means that when you're triggered, you raise your voice, I can't deny you that experience. You can commit to working on it. You see that it doesn't feed into our relationship, but it's a bit harsh for me to say, if you raise your voice even for a second, I'm out. I suppose this leads into the definition of, so there's two types of boundaries. There's fear-based boundaries and there's loving boundaries. Fear-based boundaries tend to be one of two things: impermeable or permeable. So the impermeable ones are like super rigid. They don't take into account any context. And they're meant to keep us safe, like super safe. For instance, in the example I just gave, let's say I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to say, if you ever shout at me, I'm going to break up with you. Okay? Rigid boundary, because I've had some really traumatic experience or whatever in the past from someone who shouted a lot and it ended horribly and I stayed way too long. So I've taught myself I'm never going to experience that again. I'm afraid of it. Fear-based, rigid, you raise your voice even once, that's it, I'm out the door. Even though we probably had a chance to make our relationship work. The other fear-based one is the porous, the permeable boundary, which is when I will sacrifice. That's less of the fear of like conflict and fear of like punishment or something bad happening. And the porous ones are fear of loss of connection, which basically means I've said it to you, James, every time you shout at me, I'm going to take 10 minutes or whatever, and I never do that. Or, hey, James, I don't like it. I don't like the first thing you do when you get home from work is have 3 beers. I'm going to leave if you don't cut down on your drinking. And then months pass, years pass. But I never do anything about it. I say that it's a boundary, but it's not, because actually the fear of losing my connection with you is greater than serving myself.
Okay, so just to clear that up, the fear-based boundaries, you've got the rigid ones, the ones where, say, if you raise your voice or you go and do this certain thing, but I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And then the fear-based one, the other one, the one where it's impermeable, is basically they have a boundary, which is based on fear. They never stick to it.
Yeah.
For example, let's use another example. I don't like the way you always go over and hug that woman over there, and I don't like it. I want you to stop.
Yeah.
And then he keeps doing it, and she ignores it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
I think, okay, a better way of describing the two splits is one is fear of losing yourself, and one is fear of losing the other. So they're both.
Okay.
So it's, if I put up with your behavior, I'm going to lose myself, so get the fuck away from me. Or if I don't put up with your behavior, I'm going to lose you. And depending on what relational traumas we've come from, one is probably more important than the other for us. So then you would hopefully set your boundaries in like the third way. Well, I say third way. Fear or love. Those are the two, but fear is separated into those two. And a loving one takes context into the picture. They are caring for both you and me. And it's only maybe even a slight tweak onto the shouting one. It's, in fact, if I could, I wish I could be one now. Let's say the rigid one was you shout and I leave the relationship. Okay, so it's just straight off, end of, nothing's happening. There's no space for context or anything like that. A more loving version of that would be when you shout, I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to take 10 minutes because I need to calm myself down. I would also like you to have 10 minutes to take a breath also, or you do what you want, wherever it is. But my aim from holding this boundary in place is that we can come back into a space and collaborate again without telling you your experience and not denying me my experience. Your experience being you're triggered and my experience being that I'm also triggered, but in a different way. Maybe I'm feeling fear. Whatever isn't quite jiving to bring us back into that space of collaboration.
Okay. So going back to that, from looking at it from the outside and how you described it, the fear-based ones, or perhaps the person who has the fear-based ones, don't see themselves as, perhaps don't see their own worth, and they don't feel good enough. Whereas the loved ones are based on their own self-worth.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the porous fear-based ones, definitely a lack of self-worth. I think a rigid one is because you are protecting yourself in a big way by walking away from situations that are a hard no. And I think it is important to have those very strong boundaries in place. There are things that none of us should put up with when we talk about levels of abuse, emotional or physical, danger, lack of safety, those genuinely harmful things. I think we all, on some level, do have boundaries around that. I'm really talking about we're talking about relationships that actually have a chance to go somewhere. I'm not talking about For instance, if you're in a relationship which has a problem with domestic violence, I don't think any amount of loving boundary is going to help you through that.
Okay.
If your partner is hitting you, there's no real recourse for that in the ways of me taking 10 minutes is going to help you get through this awful.
Yeah.
So we are talking in terms of the scope of a reasonable amount of conflict, what is reasonable for people to be impacted and have an experience in a relationship. Yeah, so self-worth does come massively into it. I think, the porous ones, definitely you feel unworthy because you're not worthy, you're not feeding yourself enough worth to hold it. The rigid ones are, I would say you're holding yourself in worth, but you're also not brave enough to keep yourself in a situation, and I don't mean that as an insult, but it's too intense and too scary for you to re-experience a situation and try and do it in a different way. And we're just talking about conflict, like even if it's just a trigger that comes up and that's the nervous system coming back into it, nervous system goes, hey, danger, get out, or whatever it is, and that feeling is so intense for you that I'm just going to close the door on that. So the loving ones, again, always end with something that I am going to do, not you are going to do. If it's something for both of us to do, then it's an agreement, not a boundary.
Yeah.
We agree that when we have a conflict, we will have resolved it within 48 hours. There's an agreement that a couple can make that both are taking a step forward. I'm setting a boundary that when we have a conflict, I'm going to stick with the same one. When we are triggered and it gets to the point of shouting and things aren't going anywhere, I'm going to be the one who just says, no, I'm taking a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm making that a bit messy.
It's starting to make sense. But I think boundaries are a messy subject because we don't understand them. So how do you, for people out there who are listening, how can they start to create their own boundaries? So for somebody who's got no boundaries, how do we start to create them?
Again, I think it always starts with a conversation. I think once you've started the journey, the path, once you've started to just get real about what it is you want from the relationship, what your obstacles are as an individual coming into a relationship, what you're going to struggle with, what they're going to, and then you're understanding your partner and what they struggle with, and all of that beautiful, honest, expansive conversation, then you can start setting realistic boundaries, just picking and choosing without having any real idea about how you receive the impact of the world. It isn't going to form a boundary that serves anything more than the strategies you have in place currently. So if you are unaware that you're conflict avoidant, the boundaries you put in place are going to feed your conflict avoidance. If you are someone who loves to fly off the handle, then, well, I say loves to, who reacts in a way where posturing up, getting more aggressive than what's in front of them, has served them well in the past and kept them safe after the fact, or removed the danger from their environment, that's what I should say, then your boundaries are going to feed into that. So I think before you even set any boundary, you really have to understand relationally what you're bringing into the space, what your obstacles are going to be, because, like I said, the loving boundaries have care included in them. So let's say, James, that I know that you struggle to tap into your emotions. You struggle to really articulate yourself when it comes to like deep conversation. It wouldn't be very kind of me to put a boundary in place, which is, you know what, the next time you're silent, the next time you give me the silent treatment, not in a cruel way, but because I'm asking you questions and you don't answers, I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I'm just going to leave. I'm going to go spend a couple of days at my mum's house because I'm just so sick of the silence. There's no yes, I'm standing up for my value in wanting to have a more communicative relationship with you. but it's not loving in a way that actually allows you to step into and practice talking deeper into it. So it's nuanced in a way where if you are setting boundaries that are supposed to work for two of you, it's like, where's the give and take? Obviously, you're going to have my value. Again, it comes down to values. My value in that boundary I just tried to set is I want to be able to talk to you on an emotional level. That's what I want to expand that. So then create a loving boundary around that, which honors me, also gives you a bit of leeway to do the thing that I'm asking you to do. Because that's the other thing about it, is like, we all think that we're so deserving of being treated exactly how we want to be treated. And we are. However, expecting someone else who's coming with decades of their own life experience to just overnight be able to fit into our cookie cutter mold of what makes us feel good is so unrealistic. Just like we're not going to be able to do it for that other person straight away. So really exploring what it is that honors both parties. So I would say, like, boundaries are hard. So if you're looking to set boundaries, you're looking to find out what they are, then you need to find out what you value. You need to find out what your obstacles are, and you need to know what your partner's values and what their obstacles are. If you really want to make a boundary that's going to last, and then also be willing to review, come back to it. How long do I need to hold this boundary for? Not all of them are going to be permanent. Maybe some only work because in the environment you're in, you, I don't know, move to a new city for 6 months, but you're not going to be there permanently. There may be things that you have to put in there that won't work the next place you move, whatever they may be. So actually being able to also surrender to the fact that these aren't permanent. They last as long as you want them to last. And be willing to review, be willing to own you don't hold your own boundary. Because that's the thing, if someone else steps over your boundary, ball's in your court. This is why a boundary isn't something that you do, it's something that I do. Oh, James's Rose's voice. Am I going to do the thing that I said that I'm going to do in this moment? Can I make that decision? Is it?
It's something I set that you do.
No, it's something that I set that I do. There is obviously impact in there, but a boundary, I can't tell you how to be. I can tell you how to show up to get the best out of me. It helps when you use a soft tone, and I like it when we go slow, when we take breaths together through our conversation. That actually really helps me stay centered and get through this difficult conversation. But I can't tell you, you will do this, you will do that, you will do the other. It's unrealistic. So James, I love the slow pace and the breaths and things. And to serve myself, if things get heated and you end up raising your voice, I'm going to take 10 minutes because I need that for my own good.
Okay. So it's something I set, I do. They set, they do.
Yes.
And you're finding a nice balance in the middle.
Yes.
To obviously not chance all over each of his boundaries.
Yes. And that's where the agreements come in. So when you start exchanging the responsibilities is like, that's an agreement. So it's okay. And agreements can be more challenging. And I always recommend doing really, same with boundaries, small and accessible. It's the micro decisions that lead into the macro decisions, which is why I don't like boundaries. Oh, if we have another argument by the end of this month, I'm going to leave. That is a huge step to make over what is one, you're just talking about one natural conflict in the next month, and you're going to make a huge, massive decision. It's like, keep it realistic, small things, which is why I love the 10-minute break things or whatever works. But an agreement, let's say, our agreement around that could be if the worst should happen. If you should raise your voice, James, and I have to take 10 minutes, can we both agree that the first thing that we're going to talk about when we come back is what just happened? We're not going to jump straight back into the conversation. The first thing we both agree to do after we come back for that 10 minutes is talk about what caused the disconnection and really understand each other's realities. So for me, it'd be like, okay, yeah, I got really stressed. I could feel myself sweating and my hands shaking when you raised your voice, and I needed a break when you said this thing. And yours could be, I don't know, I felt really criticized when you made that comment, and yeah, that's why I raised my voice slightly. Or you could be like, I don't feel like I've raised my voice. This is what happened for me. But again, it's not about, back earlier in the show, that conversation is about being right or wrong. Anyway, we're getting into other things now. There's an agreement there is, we both agree that's going to be the first thing that we talk about when we come back into reconnection. I don't need your help leaving the conversation. That's my boundary. But can we both do this thing when we come back?
Yeah.
Yes or no? And there are loads. I like agreements, but again, they have to be held in the same sort of messiness as boundaries. It's okay. Let's say that we both fail at an agreement. We've come back into connection, and the first thing that we did was not that conversation about what's just happened. Okay, we failed our agreement. Both parties failed the agreement. The next important step, at whatever point it is, and this is where boundaries and agreements sometimes fall apart, or people find them a struggle to hold them, is that the temptation there would be, okay, we made that agreement. The first time the opportunity came to practice it happened, we both failed, so we're never going to talk about that again. That agreement can just get lost in the past, and we both tried it once and it didn't work. The thing about boundaries and agreements that make them so powerful is the willingness to review, come back, discuss, is it working? Did it work? Did it not work? What worked? What didn't? Do we need to change it? Is this working for us now? Cool, let's continue along this path. So I think actually the willingness to touch base again and again around agreements and around boundaries is probably what helps them stick the longest. Recognizing the value behind them. Is it fear-based? Is it love-based? Committing to something that's accessible and easy. Waiting for a time to practice it. And then even if it goes well or goes wrong or goes somewhere in the middle, agreeing to come back into conversation around that again.
Okay.
Because it's just as important to address something that didn't work as it is to celebrate something that did.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jack. For those people who want to get in contact, what are your details? How can they get in contact?
Yeah, Jack Longbottom-relationshipcoach.com is my website, or info@jacklongbottom-relationshipcoach.com is my email address. I don't have any social media at the moment. I'm trying to rekindle my relationship with social media in a positive way. That's going to take some boundaries.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, at the moment it's just my website. But yeah, I also do. I'm actually I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but on the 18th of this month, I'll be down in Glastonbury at a festival called Love Jam, doing a workshop on conflict and repair. And that's actually the most immediate thing I've got planned in the future. So,
okay, it'll probably come out after that, but I can put a thing out anyway onto my socials. If you send me the details.
That'd be amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to Man, A Quest to Find Meaning. If today's conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to reflect, then take a step. Remember, real growth comes from action, not just insight. If you found value in this episode, share it with a friend, leave a review, or reach out and let me know what resonated. Your feedback helps shape the journey we're on together. For more conversations like this, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn for updates, tools, and upcoming guests. Remember, it's not about having the answers, is about daring to look.